Dr. Bernstein, start with you. For many Ohioans that I hear from, yesterday I was in East Palestine again, for instance, prices for groceries and rents remain far too high. The cost of living, raising a family have been rising for decades. Inflation stemming from the pandemic and from Putin's war in Ukraine remains a challenge at home and abroad. While we've seen prices come down in recent months, Americans are searching for more relief. Dr. Bernstein, would you describe briefly how you view inflation at this time, how your views have evolved on the subject over time, and what Congress can do to help the administration tackle this?
Thank you, Senator. As you very correctly suggest, inflation is a global challenge. The rates of inflation are now double in the European Union and the UK than they are here. They're closer to 10%. We're around 5%, and that 5% is down from its most recent peak of over 9% last June. The fact that inflation has been global, despite different policy agendas across different countries, provides an important reminder that its overriding cause was, as you suggest, first the pandemic and then later the war. That is, countries all had different fiscal and monetary responses, but they all had fast rising inflation. And while we still have ground to make up, as noted, our inflation's fallen much faster than either in the EU or the UK. Now, inflation is a function of strong demand, especially for goods. It was during the pandemic, as well as damaged supply chains. In answer to your question of actions that we've taken, one of the first things we did out of the box was to try to repair damaged supply chains, improve the logistics therein, and increase the flow of goods across the globe. That work has been quite successful. Supply chains are much repaired from where they started, and in fact, core goods prices have been negative or about zero for the last 6 months. Finally, fiscal and monetary policy since 2020 contributed to demand, but it also helped us to get to the other side of the crisis. The rescue plan, in particular, got shots in arms, checks in pockets, setting up an historic recovery with a labor market that, as you said in your opening statement, has made some remarkable gains. Hundreds of millions of people received vaccination, child poverty cut by half, the first national eviction prevention program, small businesses getting to the other side of this recovery and posting record entrepreneurial gains in this period, and of course, a real GDP level that's 5% above its pre-pandemic level and well above that of the G7. So I think that balanced view hopefully covers both our understanding of inflation, actions we've taken to ameliorate its pressures, as well as some of the very positive, important growth effects that everyday people are benefiting from.
Thank you for that answer. Mr. Green, prior to your hearing in 2021, you wrote the committee. You unequivocally stated you do not support defunding the police. You testified in 2021 under oath that you do not support defending the police. Put this issue to bed once and for all. Again, under oath, do you support defunding the police?
I do not support defunding the police, Chairman Brown.
Have you ever advocated for, do you support defunding DOJ, the FBI, or federal law enforcement?
No, I have not.
Okay, thank you for that answer. I talk about defunding the police today is a distraction. My colleagues know that. The chart that the ranking member held up, were not your words, understanding that. The witnesses have stayed under oath that this witness does not support defunding the police. But what's ironic on this is these political attacks endure in presidential races and Senate races, wherever. What's interesting is that it's Democrats who funded the police. The American Rescue Plan enabled communities around the country to keep cops on the job through the pandemic. Democrats voted for the American Rescue Plan. Republicans, to the person, opposed funding local and state police in our communities. Republican politicians today in the House and Senate are actually calling for defunding law enforcement, defunding the FBI, defunding DOJ. Prominent Republican politicians continue to do that while accusing Democrats of something that Democrats simply haven't advocated for. If you care about law enforcement, you support them in word and deed, period. Now, my last question for Mr. Bordzkowski. You have significant experience leading and managing economic research organizations. Briefly describe how your experience has prepared you for this role and how you approach evaluating risk to our financial system.
Thank you for the question, Chairman Brown. I think, given that time, I'll do this very briefly, but my role at the CFPB in particular was to build a research office for a brand new government agency, and that meant gathering the data resources, hiring the personnel that were necessary, putting in the correct policies, procedures, and safeguards for those data, all to make sure that we could do the analysis, provide those at the time to Director Cordray and later to Acting Director Mulvaney and Director Kraninger, so that they can make the policy decisions the Bureau needed. And that was primarily my role over that period of time.